Hey guys, good day. Welcome to, I guess, the first in a series of Starseed Training World interviews. So I've started to get this interview thing going before, and perhaps now this is the time when it really gets some momentum. So today we have Thomas Longrigg. So I hope I pronounced your name correct, Thomas. So Thomas is the new coach at Starseed Training World. He's joined the Starseed Training World platform, and he's now offering sessions. And so he's offering free introductory sessions also. So if you want to check the link below, you can sign up for one. So me and Thomas met on Cory Katuna's Bootcamp course. And if you know about my belief in cycles and things go in cycles of 9 years and cycles of 11 years and cycles of 2 years, and obviously cycles of 1 year, and how life is cyclical in nature, it's an interesting synchronicity that me and Thomas are now talking in a video chat like we were 1 year ago in the coaching course, and launching a coaching platform together. So I see this as a energetic evolution. Like I talk about this in my videos, Thomas, about how everything is cyclical, and how like what we focus upon in August of 1 year and September of 1 year will come around the August and the September of the second year, according to the principles of sacred geometry and the spiral of life, and how everything grows cyclically and spirally and grows in impetus. And this is the idea of how everything grows according to the principles of sacred geometry. When you focus upon something year after year after year after year, it doesn't just grow linearly, it grows exponentially, like the Nautilus shell or the spiral and then ram's horns, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's very stable like a ram because it's connected to the unique consciousness of the universe. So less about me talking. And so welcome, Thomas. So I guess a good point to start the interview is I guess we'll give a little bit of background on Thomas first, and then he can share some more himself. Thomas was a computer programmer for several years. He also has a background in psychology, which he doesn't believe is relevant to his coaching platform, which I find very peculiar, because I've actually considered studying psychology myself to go deeper into it. So we'll get into that in a bit. But also, he's studied, he's got another synchronicity with me. We both went into Eckhart Tolle's Power of Now about 11 years ago, around about the time I had my awakening experience in 2009. Thomas was reading The Power of Now, a very influential, Bashar and Eckhart Tolle were the two main influences back in the day for me. And so yes, so we seem to resonate on many levels. And so yeah, and so coming back to 12 months ago, me and Thomas were doing this Cory Katuna Breakthrough Bootcamp call, which I'll perhaps put a link to, something to do with Cory, in the box, because she's epic and she really helped me, and I'm sure she helped Thomas a lot. And there was about 50 or 60 of us in this group boot camp that just sort of birthed out of nowhere. She says she just posted it on her blog post, and like I got a deep calling. I was actually, my higher self was like repeatedly for about a month up to the course saying, do this and like at some point I said, okay, I'm just going to sign up. And yeah, and so this is how me and Thomas met. And Cory is part of, very connected to Bentinho's team. And as some of you may know, I've been a very ardent follower, or was for many years, a student of Bentinho. There's a video of on my YouTube channel about Bentinho when he got blacklisted and made into a demon by one post on medium.com by this strange woman. And so yes, so Bentinho was a big part of my history, and so perhaps that'd be a starting point. You mentioned that you've been involved with the Bentinho community and visiting something you said was called the monastery or something. So perhaps you could tell us a bit more about what's going on in Holland, in Amsterdam. This is happening, yes?
Oh, cool. Yeah. Oh, yeah, there's so much to talk about with Bentinho. I'll just say, like, that was probably one of the major turning points in my life, was going to a Bentinho retreat. So I definitely, like, when I first read Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, that was also like, that you could say was like the spiritual awakening, like becoming conscious of like, oh, enlightenment is like a real thing. Oh, like there's people that are enlightened and learning about the ego and all that. And and then when I went to a Bentinho retreat, which was like 2 or 3 years ago, that was like kind of, I was doing the whole spiritual search by myself, and no one was really, I didn't even know anyone that like read The Power of Now as well. Like I shared it around, but no one, I think like my mom read it, but she like didn't really get it, but she like read it, and like no one was really like on the same page as me. And then so like when I stepped into a community where I was suddenly like surrounded by all these people that were on the same page, it was like freaking mind blowing. It was like stepping into a whole new world. Um, and then it was in Sedona, so like I went to Sedona, which was like magical in and of itself. And then of course listening to Bentinho every day. So I went to one retreat, and then like I came back home, and then like literally 2 months later I was back in Sedona at another retreat. This one longer, 2 weeks, with like more, like we would meditate like every day outside for 2 hours as part of the retreat as well. And then I went to another retreat of his about half a year later in Barlow, like a residential retreat. And then then I went to the monastery. So there's members of the community that are living together, and that was sort of like when I heard that was happening, because I love like the community aspect of it so much, like being around others who are following like the teachings and very intentional with their state of being and with just purifying themselves, focused on love and kindness and purity and self-awareness, and like actually dedicated to discovering who they are and like deepening every day, and meditation and all that good stuff. So when I heard that this was a thing and that there's people like living together, I went to visit because they had like a study week. So I went, and it was just about a week, I stayed with them. And and then I also went to another more exclusive retreat, which was also held at the monastery, or at least we spent a lot of time there. There was some logistics with all of us staying at the monastery, like that wasn't allowed at the time, just because of whoever owned the property or whatever. But we spent a bunch of time there in like a family community setting. So and then of course, Cory is part of the community and is really close with Bentinho, and like studies directly with him. And and then I signed up for her boot camp just kind of on a whim. Just I saw like a Facebook post and just felt like an energy in that, and was like, all right, I'm gonna fuck it, I'll do it. And and that was awesome. Like we met and we had like a again, it was like a community experience because we would get into little groups. And so we had a little group which you were a part of, and we'd do Skype calls every week, and it was super cool. And we I guess the other thing with Bentinho is he brought in, for me, it was maybe we could talk about something else, but just my initial pull towards Bentinho, I was never initially like attracted to him. Like I knew him like as a teacher, but he was always like a little like I guess, like out there, and I'd almost like enjoy like watching him, like just to like hear some like sort of new perspective or whatever. Um, but for me, he synthesized like a lot of different teachings. So like he knew about Bashar, so that sort of like grounded it for me, because I was listening to Bashar and wondering like, what the hell am I listening to? Like, I love what he's talking about, but like am I going crazy? Like, am I getting sucked into some crazy world? But he grounded it for me, because I was like so convinced of like enlightened teachers. Like, I just know they're legit, right? So when he kind of brought in that world, it would like all made sense to me, because it like brought in the spirituality and the I guess channeled material, like new agey, I guess, but it's not like um there's only specific stuff that I'd pay attention to, but some of it was channeled. So like kind of brought in like these expanding ideas, and also empowerment, and also some worldly stuff. Like, he would comment on worldly stuff, and that would also be like, okay, okay, I'm like, he kind of like brought it all together, and it it helped me with not feeling lost, because I know his root, his core um, is in enlightenment, is in spirituality, is in transcendence, um, oneness, all this stuff. Like, that's the core of it. So when he was like, when I was in my explorations, like, to hear him sort of also understand those explorations as well made me like really gravitate towards him. Um, yeah.
Yeah, so if we wind right back a little bit to something you said at the start of what we were talking about, you mentioned how before you found the Bentino community, you were kind of in this place where you were, it was just you and your power of now, and like people you talk to were perhaps not interested, or so this is a phase we all go through, where we have this big awakening and we become fascinated by this interesting information, and then we start talking to our friends and family and realize that they're not interested in it at all, and they actually think we're crazy. So,
Yeah. It's like the second
so,
awakening is like realizing that you're sort of
yeah, so
not
how did
every,
you
yeah.
deal with how did you deal with this phase personally, before you found the community and before you found like-minded people? How did you deal with it?
Not well. I had a really, really tough time. Um, yeah, like, I went through a phase where I would like, I started smoking like cannabis with some friends. Like, that was sort of
Oh no, terrible. Just see what happens up here in the Andes, I tell you. Anyway, carry on.
But that was like, it was almost, yeah, it was like this desire to break out of something, like the norm, conditioning. Um, but I found myself like in a really tough place mentally. Like, I found myself in a very, I had some, yeah, it's like my mind became paranoid in like certain uh experiences with that, like, and it was just like I had these really like fucked up experiences. um and um so from there, it was like impossible. I was studying computer science at school, at like a very challenging school. So uh it was like impossible. It was impossible for me to like work and like on abstract complex math, like math problems. Like, I really, like, I gave it my all, but it felt so like what the hell am I doing? Like, what is this? Um like, just weird. Like, why would I even do this? So I had a really tough time because then I didn't know what to do. All I really cared about was enlightenment at this point. Like, all I wanted to do was be enlightened. But no one understood that. I couldn't explain that to my parents or anything. So yeah, I went through a really tough time, and ended up in therapy. And that my therapist, so sort of like you could say one of the other teachers, like after Eckhart, that I gravitated towards and found was Adyashanti. And so this therapist, I actually kind of like looked for a therapist that might be like in that world, like spiritually aware, and went to one guy, and he kind of gave me a list of recommendations, and he recommended this one guy. So I went to him, and then I found out that, like, in the first session, I found out that he was a student of Adyashanti. Like, he would actually go to Adyashanti retreats and actually like help out in the retreats, and he was a student. So I was like, okay, like all right, nice. I'm in, right?
Because gift from God.
Right?
A gift from God.
Yeah, it was like, now I can talk about not only everything that's going on in my life, but I could also talk about this spirituality thing, with someone who gets it. And so that was huge. And so I did about like 5 years of therapy with this guy. And it ended sort of around the time that I was getting into like going to Bentinho retreats. So that was sort of like the end of the therapy and the beginning of this world that I found myself in, with others that understand.
So you mentioned to me before the call that you have a psychology background. So you studied psychology in a traditional I don't like to call it an institution. Your institution.
Yeah, well, so I, when I wasn't, like, I started failing courses in computer science, like I just wasn't able to do that anymore. And so like I looked at all my options. Like I kind of looked into like anthropology because I found that kind of interesting, like human evolution. But that ended up being like crazy boring. Like I think I spent a couple months in that. And the only other kind of official like thing to study at this university that interested me was psychology. So I just got like a really kind of basic degree in psych, just to like, I used my computer science courses to like as part of that, to like make the degree go faster, because it took up like electives and whatever. So I didn't like all, you could say, go to waste.
So you mentioned to me that you like when we like talking about how Thomas is starting coaching at Starseed Training World now. Check out the link below. You mentioned before the call, Thomas, how you didn't feel your psychology background was relevant to what you're now doing. And like personally, I actually have a bit of a fascination with psychology, and even at some point considered studying psychology to gain a deeper understanding of my own work in the psychological healing process, which is such a deep part of the spiritual transformation. So why is it that you feel that the psychology isn't really relevant for what you're doing at present?
There probably is like relevance there. There's certainly relevance with the interest in the human mind, and understanding people and all that. Just the actual, like, it wouldn't be something like that I would be like, oh, like I'm a good coach because I did psychology at university. Like that, it wasn't like on that level. Like you probably I could have branched from psych into more of that sort of study. But I found it like what I actually learned at university was just kind of like basic stuff, and a lot of it like kind of more like it didn't kind of hit the depths that spirituality hits anyway. Like when understanding the mind, it was kind of like a bit scientific and like by the book and whatnot. So yeah, I think there's certainly relevance there with the interest. It's just not something that I feel is like what I'm specialized in. Like I'm not a psychology expert or something like that.
Okay, yeah.
I more like went the spiritual route, you could say, in terms of it felt more direct for me.
Yeah. Okay. So perhaps going back to your story a little bit. You said so at some point you started visiting a lot of retreats. So sorry guys, it's a bit cold here. It's a bit cold here this time of morning. I'm getting a bit cold. I need to jump up and down, but that looks silly on the video. So yeah, so getting back to your story, you said at some point you started going to a lot of Bentinho retreats and you're having a great time there meeting people. So personally, I had the same experience. I had some great experience at like Moody retreats and various places, and it was almost like I was going to the retreat for the experience and to get the hit and the download and the buzz. But then you come back to your life and you're like, oh fuck! But now I've spent all my money at the retreat, and now I'm back to square one. And like, so how did you deal with this phase of like integrating between the expansion of amazing retreats and then coming back to your real life and realizing that it wasn't the answer, the complete answer?
Yeah, awesome question. Yeah, so just to like I guess complete the story, I ended up so I've always been like a huge lover of video games. Like as a kid, that was like the most exciting thing.
Yeah, me too.
Was video games. So I knew how to program, and I actually watched a video. It's a long answer to your question, but I'll get to it. I actually watched a video from an independent game developer, and he was talking about his like design philosophies, and it was just super deep. Like he was putting like human emotion into his games. He was putting like really like deep philosophical ideas, deep thought into his games. So I'm like, all right, this is something worldly that I can go towards, because I love video games, so it's exciting. There's a potential for depth there, and I have a background in comp sci. Like I've done comp sci, I've done programming, so I'll go in that direction. So after my psych degree, I did a year at a college doing a post-grad course in just video game programming. And I ended up about 9 months after that course, where I made games and even made my own game. I got hired by Rockstar Games, which is like the guys who make Grand Theft Auto.
I knew that.
Yeah. So I was suddenly in the major leagues.
Rockstar Games actually have an office in Lincoln in the UK, where I come from.
Yeah.
So I once applied for a job there as a video games tester. You know, like all kids do, think a video games tester is going to be an easy life.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was like it was a really cool, like it was a really fun experience, and it was a good way to like completely dedicate myself to something, and it was very challenging to like suddenly be in the big leagues, and I ended up taking on a pretty big role, relatively speaking, in a game that released about 2 years ago, Red Dead Redemption. So that was like a really cool experience. But so during that period, which was about 3.5 years, that was when I started going to these Bentinho retreats. And so there was this like split, you could say, of like not like being like, well, I want that, but I'm here, and like this is pretty cool, but it's missing something, like and so that's actually been sort of the past 2 years. Is I like left this job and went like full on, like in my mind, full on into like the Bentinho world, into spirituality. And that kind of ended up like not working out, you could say, in a sense. Like there's definitely been, it was like I became unbalanced in the worldly aspect, you could say. Like it was like I went full on into like spirituality, and just like full on into like leaving, like I left the job and just like I'm going full on just to see what happens, right? If I go like that hardcore. And as a result, I think over the past 2 years, I've really grown spiritually, but I've also realized like, okay, maybe maybe there was an imbalance there, because I experienced like, as you were saying, when you come back, there's almost like it's like coming down from a like a high or something. There's like and so I experienced like even more of that polarity of like going full on and then coming back, and like really going into like what felt like a certain ditch. However, I've just kind of powered through. And so like the solution, I guess, that has come up in this is like, okay, well, I still need to live in the world. I still need to earn money. At least I don't see a way around that currently. It just seems to be what needs to happen. So I was like, okay, I'll go into coaching, and went, and there's a man named Boer who has actually coached for Bentinho programs, and has been part of the community. And I met him at a retreat, and he's brilliant. And so I've been training with him. There's like a couple of us in just a course that he's been doing over the past COVID era months. So since like April. So yeah, so now, and I feel I've picked up on it great, because it's like all that spiritual work, all that spiritual training is now being applied in a way to directly help others. And so that's sort of the merging that I'm attempting to do right now, in terms of like, okay, I can't just meditate all day. There's still a world to attend to. Plus, I don't really want to meditate all day. Like, there's part of me that wants to interact with the world and do things and create and etc. and serve and help people. So yeah, so now I'm doing coaching.
Hey guys, so we just had a little technical glitch there. My phone battery died. I'm experimenting with recording on phone because it seems to get a better Zoom quality than a laptop generally. So we were just coming to the end of the interview and really zoning into like what Thomas's calling is, what you were talking about, Thomas, with the with really experiencing into oneness and this higher consciousness in these retreats. And then we were talking about how about integrating these experiences in reality. So I guess that segues nicely into like, what do you feel your calling is? How do you feel inspired to share this higher love with humanity in specifically in the coaching course you're offering through the Starseed Training World platform?
Nice. Yeah, so we did some calling work in Cory's boot camp, and yeah, and just yeah, and since then, and now that I've experienced coaching and whatever, and helping people, I feel like there's sort of like two kind of callings, so they kind of work together. One is like sort of this complete like non-judgmental, accepting, uh, like love, and so I like radiating that. I like people to feel like completely accepted and completely um, okay with with who they are and whatever they're feeling, whatever they desire, all of that. So it's like this complete acceptance, along with uh, wanting people to feel like in awe. Like I love it when people are like, "Whoa!" And so I love when, yeah. So it's like with the coaching, it's sort of like whatever you want to work towards, we can work towards. So if it's something that like really like excites you, like, oh, I love this thing, then yeah, I love that. I love kind of highlighting that sort of anything is possible in that regard, and you can really like go for things. Yeah.
Great.
Hmm.
So thank you for joining me for this interview, Thomas. If you want to grab a free introductory session with Thomas through Starseed Training World and learn out exactly what Thomas is teaching and exactly how to find out that, wow, I want to go for this, where that part of you resides and how to activate it and start to live it in the world, click the link in the box below. So thank you so much, Thomas. It's been an honor, and it's been really interesting to hear about your story, which has actually been a very similar parallel path to mine, synchronistically. So
Ooh.
I look forward to talking with you more about this in the future. And I look forward to seeing more of you, Starseeders, in further interviews. So have a great day, guys. Shivai. Peace out.